Hi, my name is Stephen Goff. This video is to discuss classroom instruction to help kids out with intellectual disabilities, ADHD, autism spectrum disorders, hearing disabilities, and speech and language disabilities or disorders. First, I'd like to talk about intellectual disabilities and a classroom method to help with that called scaffolding. Scaffolding is a six-step process that helps build learning in sequence. The first step is to introduce the concept. When you introduce a new concept, it's important to lay out all the steps using concrete illustrations, then teach the models and the strategy for the learning process. This is an important step because if you don't have a good, clear concept of what's going on, then it's hard to get to the next step. Step two is to regulate difficulty during guided practice. You're going to simplify the strategy that you presented step by step, and then the teacher works with and assists the students in completion of the task. Step three is to provide varying context for student practice. Students begin to work with real world problems, and as they get better and better, you kind of remove the scaffolding and let them start doing stuff on their own. Then with step four, you'll start providing feedback. Give the students constructive feedback. You can even give them a checklist to allow them to self evaluate, see how they're doing on their own. And then with step five, you're going to increase the students' responsibility a little. As they progress and you remove more and more of the scaffolding, and the teacher begins to evaluate for mastery. And six is you're going to provide independent practice. The scaffolding is completely removed. The students there, hopefully, with a good foundation for what they need to do, and they're going to work by themselves. The more standard definition, students are provided with extensive opportunities for practice and apply steps in novel situations. So not just taking what you've learned, but taking what you've learned in this situation and being able to apply it to a different situation. And next we need to talk about attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. We're going to talk about an instructional modification. It's a seven-step process. Step one, we're going to place a student in a least distracting part of the classroom, probably away from a window, not looking outside, maybe facing the blackboard, close to the teacher, keep them more engaged. Step two, we're going to put good role models around the kid, peers that they see as equals, encourage some peer-to-peer tutoring and cooperative learning. Step three, we're going to do the best we can. It's not always in our control, but to keep the pupil-teacher ratio as low as possible through either co-teachers, the use of volunteers, whatever's available in your particular classroom. And step four, we're going to avoid unnecessary changes in schedules and routine. They're going to happen, but when they do happen, try to go through those changes best you can with the student and allow them to understand why they went on, what's going on, and most importantly, what you expect from them, how they need to react to that situation. Step five is to maintain eye contact during periods of instruction, which is pretty standard. We've been taught since we were little to look someone in the face and make eye contact, and that's the best way to be understood. And it doesn't change with ADHD kids. They still need to be, talked to like you would anyone else, face them, talk to them like adults. Step six, combine visual and tactile cues with verbal instructions. If you could hold something in your hand, pass it around, like we'll see something. I remember a teacher of mine in school brought Canadian coins, and we talked about currency exchange and whatnot one day, and passed the coins around. I thought that was helpful. Seven is make a list to help students organize tasks. I'm not much of a list person, which maybe that's why I get disorganized from time to time. My wife is. It seems to really help her out, and it certainly will help the ADHD kids out. Just showing them what's expected, especially if it's a list that's at least similar from day to day, will really help a long way. Help them along the way. All right. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about classroom suggestions for autism spectrum disorders. This one is a little home. I've got two nieces that are both autistic, and this was interesting for me to learn some stuff I didn't know in particular about autism. But the first thing here was avoid speech a student might misinterpret. Most high functioning people with autism spectrum disorder interpret speech very, very literally. I guess you can't really say very literally, just literally. And I didn't know that, but as the book tells us here, until you know the capabilities of the individual, avoid stuff such as idioms like save your breath, jump the gun, don't give it a second thought, or double meaning or entendres. Most jokes have double meanings, so maybe steer clear of those. Steer clear of sarcasm. Um, Wonderful when something bad actually happened. It's hard for an autistic child to grasp sarcasm, and stay away from nicknames. So thought that was interesting. Then the second part of that was break down tasks. If the student doesn't appear capable of learning a task, try to break it into smaller tasks and present the task in several different ways. So I haven't seen my nieces since I took this class and gotten much more educated on autism than I was before. So I look forward to seeing them again. Next, we'll talk about hearing impairments um, and how to help a child with a hearing impairment in the classroom. We're going to talk about increasing visual information. A lot of students will use speech reading and other visual information to supplement what they hear. Hard for you and I to really understand it, but they can do it. Um, if you have a student using speech reading, remember to face that student. They obviously can't read the back of your head, so face the crowd, face that student. Try to stand in one place. Don't make them scan back and forth and try to read a moving target, if you will. Also, avoid being backlit. Don't stand with bright light behind you. Don't stand in front of a window. It silhouettes your face. It makes your face a little difficult to see. It's hard for them to do the speech reading. And also use visual aids such as pictures and diagrams when possible. If you can, demonstrate what you want those students to learn. Again, the tactile, if you could point to or hold something and show what needs to be learned. And also always try to write on the blackboard assignments, new vocabulary words, and so forth so that the student understands really what they need to be doing. Next, about speech and language impediments. This is a pretty straightforward one. There's a lot of other things in the book and online that you can do, but the two things I thought were most important was called seating and setting. In seating, to help a child focus and maintain attention, this is a lot like the ADHD scenario. Select a seat that is away from other visual and audio distractions. A seat close to the teacher, away from the doors and windows would probably be best. And in the setting, your whole classroom setting, try to reduce the external visual and audio distractions. A large number of displays or displays and posters that have clutter on them can be very distracting. If you think earplugs may be necessary, if someone has oversensitive hearing or just can't not focus on things besides the teacher talking, you might consider earplugs, but before you do, talk to an audiologist, find out if they think it's necessary, and if so, what type of earplugs you would use. And this is one situation we talk a lot in education about open classrooms, open discussion. But if you're trying to help a child with a speech or language impediment, it might be the one time where a structured classroom may be more beneficial than an open classroom.